Hi everyone, I'm back and I know I'm posting an extra video this week. Isn't that exciting? I just felt like doing it, filming extra, doing some extra editing, whatever. Procrastinating on doing my taxes is really what I'm doing. But anyway, that aside, what I really wanted to talk about today is skincare. Now, I love skincare and I'm a total nerd, so I research a lot. And I do plan on doing a full kind of AM, PM skincare routine very soon. But the focus of today's video is really going to be my views, logic, and kind of beauty philosophy when it comes to purchasing luxury skincare products. Now, my background is not in the beauty industry or in chemistry, but I am an educated person and I can make my own judgments from reading the research, reading scientific studies. Also, I've worked in finance and am now a management consultant, and I work with a lot of major, humongous Fortune 100 companies, and I know how they work. And they're profit seekers. They're not out to make sure you and I have perfect skin. Let me just be clear about that. So, do I buy luxury skincare? The short answer is that I do not. I am a wholehearted lover of the drugstore and prescriptions when it comes to skincare. The longer answer is that sometimes I do, because I am a sucker for innovative, beautiful packaging, and I do love having a bathroom counter that's all just beautifully laid out with cute jars and potions and pots. You know what I'm talking about. So yes, sometimes I do, but when I'm making those purchase decisions, I'm very aware of why I'm doing it, and I'm not doing it because I believe there's some kind of miracle in a jar that will, outperform other products that I can get in the drugstore. And the even longer answer is that while everything I just said about luxury skincare is true for skincare, it's not really true when it comes to my decision making for makeup. And it's ironic because skincare is obviously the foundation for good makeup, but because makeup is something that you see superficially on everyone, I want it to look good. And if I'm able to find drugstore equivalents to high-end products, I am all about that. But especially for things like foundation, I just don't find the drugstore ones are very good. And I mean, who knows? Maybe I just haven't tried enough of them. So if you know a dupe for the Shiseido Synchro Skin that I reviewed recently, let me know, because I'm more than willing to spend less money and achieve similar results. But yeah, for other products like eyeliner, I will never buy a high-end eyeliner. I just don't see the need for that at all, because everything I can get at the drugstore is as good, and honestly, like, it's a freaking black line on my eye. It's not that difficult to get it right. So yeah, I will only have high-end products like in eyeliner if I'm getting them for samples, but I won't ever go out of my way to purchase one. Alright, so why don't I buy luxury skincare? Well, there are two reasons, and the first one is science. Science has shown that there are really a few active ingredients that can help our skin when it comes to anti-aging, which is my main concern. But I know a lot of you care about acne, and the same is true there. There are just really a few ingredients that have demonstrable evidence that they work in the fight against acne and the fight against wrinkles and fine lines and everything that we try to avoid. And those active ingredients are things you can readily get at the drugstore or through a prescription or through, drugstore-like brands such as The Ordinary. So do I believe that Estee Lauder's La Mer and its Miracle Broth are somehow so superior to everything else I can get that I'd be willing to spend like $200 on a jar? Heck no. As far as I can tell, La Mer is just a bunch of seaweed extracts, and I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's a lovely moisturizer, but I would never spend that kind of money on it until I see clinical trials that are not sponsored by Estee Lauder and actually involve a large number of people. So until I see that, I'm not going to get suckered into buying La Mer. Plus, its packaging kind of sucks. I mean, honestly, if I'm spending that much money on a freaking moisturizer, it should not be in a plastic jar, is all I'm going to say. Second, I don't buy luxury beauty because I know what I'm paying for. Now, as I mentioned, I am pretty savvy when it comes to, large companies due to my own work experiences and education. So let's just look at one of the big players in the beauty world, Estee Lauder. Now, Estee Lauder, along with L'Oreal, along with some other major big conglomerates, own pretty much all of the brands you and I know and love and shell our hard-earned cash to purchase. And these brands range from the stuff you get at the drugstore to the high-end stuff at the department store or Sephora counter. And lucky for us, Estee Lauder is publicly traded, so we can take a peek at their financials and figure out what exactly I'm paying for when I buy a jar of goop from them. These financials are available to anyone because it's the law for publicly traded companies to disclose their performance. And these financials won't go into a ton of detail just because companies are gonna avoid sharing more when they can. But they do give us enough information so you can get a sense for how things work behind the scenes. Now for 2016, Estee Lauder had total sales of $11.2 billion. And they had COGS, or costs of goods sold, of roughly $2.1 billion. So 2.1 billion on 11.2 billion is about 19%, or 20% just for even numbers sake. But essentially that kind of 20% COGS number includes everything it costs to make a jar of goop. And that means the raw materials, the cost of the packaging, the cost of the labor, the cost of running the machines. All of those things are kind of in that COGS bucket, and that is what it costs to make a product. So then when we're comparing what it costs them to make something to what we pay at the retailer, you have to remember that the retailer also takes a cut. And in general, for manufacturers like Estee Lauder, the wholesale price is about 50% of the retail price. And that just means that, when we're talking about the sticker price and thinking about the raw materials COGS cost that goes into that jar, it's actually a lot less than the 20% that's printed on the financial statements. So let's just take an example just to illustrate the point. Assume I paid $100 for this jar of goop. Now, again, I'm buying this jar of goop from probably Sephora or something like that, and I paid $100 to Sephora. Now, Sephora, because they're not going to be buying at full price from Estee Lauder, they need to make a profit too. So they actually, generally speaking, with these wholesale agreements, are paying Estee Lauder 50% of the retail price. And I'm sure with larger companies like this and the kind of volumes that they're buying, there's differences, but just for simplicity's sake, let's just keep with that kind of rule of thumb, 50% wholesale to retail. So Sephora pays Estee Lauder $50 for this jar of goop. And that $50 is what goes into the $11 billion in total sales reported in Estee Lauder's financial statements. That means $50, 20% of that is what it costs to make the COGS for this jar. So 20% of 50 is $10. So $10 is the total cost to make this jar of goop that you and I pay $100 for, and Estee Lauder pays $10 for the materials, the raw materials, the packaging, the labor, running the equipment, keeping the factories open, etc. Now, everyone knows, I think, that, or at least I think people know, that in general, packaging is the vast majority of the cost of a product. And so let's just, for simplicity's sake, let's just say that packaging costs $5 of the $10. And then you have to think about labor and equipment and everything else. So let's just say that's maybe $3 of the $10. So that basically suggests that this $100 retail packaged good that you and I purchase at Sephora costs Estee Lauder in raw materials, just the chemical goop inside there, that costs them $2. I mean, the profit margins are astronomical in beauty, particularly luxury beauty, because again, a lot of the products on the drugstore counter aren't, in the $100 price range. And in fact, I would bet that in drugstore products, the raw materials cost is a lot more of it, whereas at the luxury end, probably it's just a lot more profit. I mean, sure, maybe there's marginal differences in how much raw materials cost for the drugstore versus the high-end product, but it's definitely not orders of magnitude in difference. I am sure of it. To put this in perspective, let's just use another company that you and I all are familiar with, and Apple. So Apple is another company that creates a physical good like Estee Lauder, etc. I'm not going to be thinking about companies like Facebook or Google that are making some physical goods, I mean in Google's case, but honestly most of their revenue is not from physical goods. So their income statements are going to look very different and their COGS will look very different. But Apple is a good comparison because they are also selling a physical good. Now, recall I said on the $11 billion in sales, Estee Lauder spent 20%. Now in Apple's financial statements, their COGS are 40%. So again, Apple, a very, very profitable, successful company, their cost to make a phone is 40%, whereas Estee Lauder's cost to make a little jar of beauty goop is only 20%, just to, put things in perspective. Now, some of you might be saying, but wait, Joanna, that's really unfair because these companies are doing a ton of research, they're innovating in the labs, they spend a lot of money that isn't just in the pure raw materials or packaging or whatever. They're spending a lot more money that's not shown in that COGS number, and you are correct. Research and development is not counted in COGS, but Estee Lauder also publishes what they spent in R&D, and in 2016 they spent about $191 million, which on $11 billion of sales is less than 2%. Again, to put it in perspective, Apple spends about 4% in R&D. So not a lot of money, but definitely not a lot for the beauty industry, and especially when they're, marketing themselves as kind of these scientific innovators, etc. Let's be real, they're not pharmaceutical companies. They don't spend the bulk of their money on R&D. The bulk of their money is being spent on selling and marketing that product to you and me. And, if we're gonna buy it, great. But again, I just want to emphasize that if you do buy it, you should be aware of what you're buying and not just be spending your money willy-nilly. Most of what that $11 billion goes towards is SG&A on their income statement. And SG&A is selling, general, and administrative. So that's the marketing department, that's the sales department, that's, yes, that also includes like the financial accountants and the CEO and all of those people, but all of those people are essentially there to run this giant marketing, branding machine, because ultimately that's what they're selling. It's not the $2 of the goop that's sitting inside the jar. Like, that's just so infinitely small compared to what they're spending on all of the other stuff, including all the advertising campaigns. And frankly, I, for the most part, don't want to pay for it, especially when I know science tells me that I don't have to pay for it. So that kind of sums up my views on luxury skincare, and in this battle, definitely logic wins out over luxury, barring those off chances when I'm like just really finding a product beautifully packaged and just, I just want it. I just want it, not because I know, not because I think it's going to do something more for me, but just because I'm like, yeah, skincare should be fun. I want that packaging. I'm getting it done. So just, but I do make those decisions, again, knowing what I'm buying, and not because I'm being fooled by their marketing and their, statements that 9 out of 10 people found it effective, because those are more often than not just kind of baloney. So that's all for my video, guys. I hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, I hope you'll hit that Okay guys, that's it for my video. I hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, do give me a thumbs up, because I love to know that you guys are actually like responding positively to the content that I'm creating, and I'll make more of it. And also, leave me comments about what you want to see. I love to hear from you, and if you haven't yet, I hope you will hit that subscribe button. Okay guys, that's it from me, so I will see you very soon. Bye!